So before I say what I have to say, I want to tell you that based on the vital voice in our family, my wife Linda, modesty is not my strength. So when you hear me say that I am not only humbled but somehow embarrassed to get this incredible recognition, I really mean it, because it seems to me that this is a very alarming sign of the world we live in and this craving for common sense. Before Secretary Clinton arrived, her shadow, her beautiful shadow, by the way, Abedin, met me and said, "You are a hero." Okay, it's nice to hear such a word from such a wonderful woman, but I'm not a hero. It's not in any way heroic to not turn the back to people that are risking to die. And talking about heroes, I want to just make the frame of the discussion or of what I'm talking about by telling you that heroes were others. Heroes were the Albanians that had everything to lose during the Second World War, and they saved Jews, making Albania the only country in Europe that had more Jews after the Second World War than before, and putting Albania as the righteous among nations by practically saving 3,750 Jews, and by closing the chapter of the war with no one single Jew consigned to the Nazis. And among them there were many heroes, but one of them, his name was Mustafa Rezniku, who is also recognized by the State of Israel as righteous among nations. He saved 42 Jewish families. But his activity in hiding them in different villages around his house was somehow signaled. And when the Nazis went to him and they asked him to give up the Jews, he gave up his two sons, who ended in Mauthausen. And he didn't give up the Jews. So there are many stories like this, but all this comes from far before, when Albanians wrote their first constitution. And the first paragraph of our first constitution says, "The house of the Albanian belongs to God and the guest." But the meaning of the word guest in Albanian in that paragraph means not only the one you invite, but also the one that shows up and knocks at your door. And the knock at the door is an obligation of you towards God to open and to help. So when in June we were in a gathering among the NATO member countries, and the talking was about the withdrawal, I just mentioned the need to address also the issue of the traitors. The traitors, as our very bitter history of dictatorship told us, are them who, after the regime will install itself will be seen like the collaborators of the enemy. And the traitors in this case were all the people of Afghanistan, women and men that were there for us, that worked with us, that covered so many things in terms of services to the NATO countries. And also them who got the front line because they believed in what we were telling them, that we were there to make Afghanistan a different place. They believed it. And they came out and they stood for that. And after 20 years, we left. And of course, it was not up to me. And as I always say, being Prime Minister of Albania in the NATO is quite an easy job because you don't have to take the decisions. But still, it seemed to me very bizarre that nobody was thinking about these people. And then in August, just when things started to get rough, someone came to me in Albania and said, Secretary Clinton needs your help. I said, how comes? This is something I would never dream of. And then he said, no, I'm serious. And it was a he, by the way. And he told me about Vital Voice and all this thing. And I said, okay, let's do it. He said, how? I said, let's do it. Let's take these women. He said, but do you want Secretary Clinton to call you? I said, no, let's do it. And then if she will remember about it, let her call me. You know, because it's very American, by the way, to be great in seducing you and then to say, who are you? But it was not the case, by the way, and she called me. When all the women were saved and settled in Albania, she called me, and of course it was a big honor, because you have to know that if you are named Clinton in Albania, or among Albanians, this is something very special, because it's related to the liberation of half of our nation, Kosovo. And by the way, it's the only place on earth where you have people, today boys, named Clinton. But the first name, not the second name. And there are even boys named Bill Clinton. First name, like Bill Clinton Ramën. Yeah. And all these boys that today are grown up, they were newborns after, thanks to President Clinton, First Lady, and the United States government at that time, this population was liberated from a regime that tried to clean them completely ethnically. So, bottom line is, we did it, and I think that as a NATO member country, we had to do it also, because we are a small country. We can't change the destiny of any war, and we go in every war by default if the United States decides. But if we are not there when it's up to save people, by not doing any heroic act like our old men and women did in the Second World War, why we have to be NATO members and for what we are worth in this world. And on the other hand, we were the Afghans 30 years ago, when we had to escape a very brutal regime. They were not Islamic fundamentalists, but they were atheist fundamentalists. Albania was the only country in the world to have in the constitution that it was an atheist republic. And like the Taliban, they blew up with dynamite, not the Buddha statues, but 2,453 churches and Roman chapels and mosques, and they burned in the streets 300,000 religious artworks and religious books. So it was North Korea of Europe. And we were the Afghans while leaving the country in the boats. And when I had to announce the decision to take the Afghans, I posted a picture. The Afghans in this plane, in this crazy plane that left Kabul, being packed with people, and Albanians in the boat 30 years ago. Same picture, same people, only different nationalities and different vessels. And I'm very proud to tell you that no Albanian political party said no to welcome these people, and the public opinion was very much for it. And I think we had to do it also because of what we owe to our children. They need to know that there is a time to get and there is a time to give in this life. And once we were them who got, now we are them who give. As for the women in government, and this is very simple, I don't want to be praised for that, because I did it somehow following the advice of the Iron Lady, Margaret Thatcher. She said, if you want something to be said, ask a man. If you want something to be done, ask a woman. Now, the matter of the fact is that she didn't pick any woman for her government because she was herself there for every other woman maybe, but I couldn't afford it. So I had to pick a lot of women to do the job, basically. Not because I'm, special in that, but I just knew by my experience that if you want something to be said, men are ready and they can say and say and say and never ending. But if you want something to be done, don't lose time with men. This is my humble advice.